In the world's greatest country, in its most pivotal state, lies Pennsylvania's Lehigh Valley, an economic hub that's as vibrant as it is ideologically eclectic. Its just over 700,000 residents will play a critical role in deciding the course of American leadership and thereby the world. Who are the thinkers, workers, and leaders that will decide our collective fate? Join me, Moshe Kurtz, as I walk through the valley and find out. Thank you, my friends, for joining me today as I walk through the valley with Ms. Margaret McConnell, Executive Director of WDIY, a member station of NPR. Now, I always get confused with like the WDIY. I was talking to my wife last night and I thought I nearly said DUI. And I don't know if it's like, I'm getting, there's a lot of acronyms over here. What's WDIY stand for, by the way?
Well, actually, when this station was formed, it was do it yourself. It was actually after the Peter Gabriel song, Do It Yourself. And it's because this station was actually built by this community. They were doing it themselves from the ground up. They actually petitioned those specific call letters from the Navy. They were assigned to a Navy ship, and they were really wanted this to be WDIY, and they petitioned it and received the call letters.
Wow, that's remarkable. And I want to get actually to the backstory of the station. We're sitting here in your building in Bethlehem, just off the bridge over here. And I want to get the backstory, the full backstory in just a moment. But before we get to the history, I want to ask you a very point-blank question.
Uh-oh.
Suppose I am a TikTok-addicted teenager or adult. There are adults addicted to social media as well. It's one of my vices. I like to say I use it for professional purposes, but I think I'm just justifying myself. It's a rationalization. But suppose I'm addicted to social media, and I forgot that there is something called the radio. What is your pitch to me and really to society to be tuning in to what your station and what NPR broadly has to offer?
So I would say that give your eyesight a break, right? Like give your eyesight a break instead of just having all the visuals provided to you. Allow yourself to listen and create your own visuals. Responding to what you're listening to. I would also say that we're providing content in longer format. So it's not a short snippet. You're talking about, news segments, which can be sort of short, a couple minutes each. But then music segments, you're listening to 3 hours of programming, or you're choosing to listen to a portion of that. But it's a longer format. It gives you time to, really immerse yourself.
Wow, this is a great pitch for a podcast also. Breaking the fourth wall over here, I realize. So what is your station cover for the most part?
So
I know the answer because I tune in every now and then on the radio.
Very, very good.
I have a radio in my car.
Same. So 75% of what we have on air is music, and that covers primarily non-commercial music. So it's not music you're going to hear on the major platforms like iHeartRadio. The genres we have range from classical music to jazz to blues to punk. We actually have a DJ once a week that is on air and playing hip hop. So we're really covering a wide range of music.
I didn't realize punk made into the exotic music
Yes,
sphere.
it did. It's a late night, because if you're into punk, that obviously means that you are a late night person.
Well, that's interesting. I was at the State of the City event for Allentown not so long ago. So Mayor Turk was celebrating, and he brought in a punk band, and everything was punk themed.
Oh, I love it.
I was like, oh man, I'm more of like a metal person. I'm more of like Metallica, Iron Maiden. I listen to more like I think it's modern now. It's old apparently. Avenged Sevenfold, Slipknot. So I'm not sure what stations honestly are playing that these days. I listen to
alternative stations probably.
I mean, well, Metallica's like on 99 The Hawk, but that's a little bit more commercial radio.
Yes.
When I want to expand my horizons, then I tune into you guys and I'm like, whoa, there's a whole world of music out there I never heard of and I have no clue who these people are.
Absolutely.
But it's so cool.
But it's good. And we all can unite around music. So that's a really important component of the station. And then the other 25% of our content is a mix of spoken word. So we have the NPR News content, and then we have our own community affairs programming, which consists of about 27 different podcast programs. They air on 88.1 FM, but then they also live forever on podcast platforms.
Oh, so I could go on Spotify, Apple, and listen to you guys as well?
Absolutely. You can listen directly from our app or from your computer on WDIY.org. You can stream us.
Wow. Okay. You just got one new subscriber. Right after this interview, I'll make sure to take care of that. So what actually is the backstory of the station? Like, tell me, you started telling me about how it was petitioned with the military. I'm a little confused over here, so we got to back up.
Okay. So actually 40 years ago, a group of, actually it was two individuals. One is actually my operations director. He was in Muhlenberg College Radio. He had a program there. And another founder, Cheryl Hockney, she came from another college radio, and they just wanted to continue doing their radio program. But the college station is for college students. So they came up with this idea to start their own radio station. They got some folks together. They decided very early on that they wanted an NPR member station. There wasn't currently one serving this area. We had the closest one being Philadelphia. So that was kind of the initial, they wanted to play their radio shows, and they felt there was a lack of NPR presence here. So they went through the process of raising the money, getting the community support, getting the community input about what they wanted to hear on the radio. And then you have to do the engineering study to find the frequency. And
how do you actually reserve a frequency on radio? I mean, what's to stop me with the right technology from just like override? I'm not
the FCC. That's the FCC. The FCC governs airtime. Any frequency, you have to apply to the FCC.
So if somebody tries using technology to override that, is that like a federal crime?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm not trying.
I'm not an expert on the FCC, but I do know that they find out about those things somehow, because I get these reports. Daily updates on the FCC and what they're doing, and sometimes there's things in there about pirated radio. So the FCC governs all of that.
Pirates, that sounds exciting.
Yeah, much more, yeah.
Well, I also want to understand, I mean, there's kind of the national NPR out there. Yep. I listen to the Up First podcast that I know is also played on the stations as well. That's part of the morning programming that takes place in the news.
Well, it's a segment. It's part of their morning edition lineup, similar to like StoryCorps. Have you ever heard StoryCorps?
No, but I'm learning new things.
StoryCorps is on Fridays, I believe. Friday mornings is a segment of StoryCorps, and it's talking. You and I could be on StoryCorps right now, just sharing our stories of our lives. Anyway, so they have different. They name different segments of their news program, but there's content being created by multiple public media organizations, not just NPR. So NPR has Morning Edition and All Things Considered. They also have Fresh Air. Those are the programs we pay for. There's a multitude of other programs that you can access. We could choose to.
Well, I was surprised, actually. I like listening to the New York Times daily podcast because I'm just basic in that way. I mean, like, who doesn't enjoy listening to them? I was going to say I just gave them a free ad, but I don't think they need me to advertise the number one podcast in America. But I listened to it earlier in the day, and then I had one of the NPR stations on. I'm like, this sounds familiar. Where did I hear this before? And they aired New York Times The Daily, and I didn't realize that was a crossover that could happen.
It's a syndicated program, which means I could choose to pick it up if I wanted to. We actually do pay for a program that's produced out of WNYC called On the Media. So, and we have a syndicated program. So we produce You Bet Your Garden, and that show is then syndicated to 26, 27 other stations across the country. So public media, you can air each other's programs. Sometimes you have to pay for it. Sometimes they're offered for free. We're all of the public media stations, whether or not they're affiliated with NPR or not, are producing their own content.
Interesting. So actually that brings me to my next question, which is the day that we first met was a little bit confusing for me because I put into my Google Maps, I'm coming from Allentown to here in Bethlehem at your office. So I just put into Google Maps NPR Bethlehem.
Oh.
Yes. So it takes me to the steel stacks and there's an NPR PBS station over there. I come to the front desk and they ask me, who I am and who am I here to see? And I say, I'm here to meet with Margaret McConnell. And they say, we don't know who that is. And
well, how dare they?
Well, how dare they? First of all, well, the front desk didn't know who you were. So I said, you don't know who your executive director is? So finally, there was a gentleman who came by, a very kind person who did know who you are and sent me in the right direction. Thankfully, it was only 5 minutes away.
Yes.
Also in Bethlehem to your office where we met. Now, the reason I bring up the story, I mean, other than giving a shout out to Hassana Birdsong and to her whole team over there that are doing important work, is we have 2 NPR stations that are servicing the Lehigh Valley. So how do you guys distinguish yourselves? What's your focus here versus what they're doing? You're both clearly doing important work, but help our listeners understand what each of you, or you could really just talk more about yourself if you want. We'll give them a shot at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. So as I was telling you, the content mix that we have, they are just strictly all spoken word, meaning they're all news, they're all NPR, they're all public media content.
They're not doing music.
They're not doing any of the music.
Culture and so much.
No. And the other thing I think that differentiates us is our hyper localness, meaning all of our content, the spoken word content outside of the 6 hours of NPR and weekdays is about this community. So all of our podcasts are directly about things that are happening in the Lehigh Valley. And the other differentiator is this station is really run by volunteers.
Yeah, what's the ratio between volunteers to actual staff?
So we have 5 staff, including myself, and we have about 140 volunteers.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's a great statement because that means the D.I.Y. that the community values what you are doing. That's a testament to the importance that you have such a huge amount of volunteers versus actual staff that are pitching in to help the station be, doing it themselves.
Right. It is why we call ourselves a community public radio station, not just a public radio station.
Oh, that's good. That's a good point. Now, I checked out some of the shows online. I have to say I was captivated by some of the names. Galactic Travels. I mean, I'm a Star Wars geek, so I saw Galactic Travel. That sounds awesome.
That's for you.
Celtic Fair, because I'm also a fantasy fan, so Celtic music always had a soft spot for that. There's the Lehigh Valley Art Salon that you guys do. So can you tell me about some of these programs? What do you consider? Obviously, you're going to say they're all important, but to you personally, you're a human being. You have your own interests. What to you resonates the most from the programs that you've been running, or what do you want to highlight? How about that way? That way you don't have to choose favorites.
Yeah, I'll say what I love about the station is that it has variety. So there's something for everyone, right? So if you're into Star Wars, the galactic space ambient noise music is going to be maybe appealing to you. Also just something really cool and different. For me, I became a public media listener. Actually driving and commuting back and forth to college when this station first came on air in the late 90s. You couldn't get a lot of stations.
What year in the 90s did it come on?
We're not going there. You could go on my LinkedIn, but it was after.
No. I'm just curious. When did the station begin?
1995.
Okay,
so it's after 95.
The reason I ask is I just figured out the station apparently has been around as long as I've been around.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just dated myself there.
So it was late 90s. I would pick up jazz when I was coming home from Kings, where I went in Wilkes-Barre. And I would pop between the Wilkes-Barre affiliate station up there and then back to 88.1. And I started listening to jazz. That's how I was exposed to that even being a genre. And then afterwards, I would say I became a really dedicated listener of WXPN, which is an all non-com music station in Philadelphia.
Not non-com.
Non-commercial.
Non-commercial. I'm learning the lingo.
Yes, the lingo. Non-com, because they just loved the mix of music, which is very similar to our Blend program. So the Blend is weekdays from 1 to 4. And it's adult alternative. It's a mix of jazz, blues.
So when I get in the car when we're done, because we started recording at 2 p.m. and I turn on the radio, I'm going to get to hear some of that.
Yes.
That's
so I love that. And then I love the community affairs programs that we do. Like, I think we have just such a diverse mix of programming where we're talking to people in the Lehigh Valley. We're talking to leaders, young leaders, Black leaders. We have a Latino or Latin or Spanish program that speaks to the Latino community. We have a program called Inside Dish that's been on for, I think, 11, 13 years, something like that. I know the host of that show is going to be unhappy that I can't remember the exact years, but it talks about like all the new restaurants that are opening, or, you know, local chefs, local winemakers, local distilleries. So you you want to go somewhere, date night, you need somewhere new, you can go through our archives on Inside Dish and find somewhere to eat.
This is really helpful. My wife's birthday's coming up soon, and
there you go.
This might give me some good ideas. I appreciate it. What's that thing called Hollywood Squares?
So last year, this was our first ever fundraising event, full-on fundraising event to bring in revenue to the station. We hosted our own Lehigh Valley version of Hollywood Squares.
So you got to tell me what Hollywood Squares is in general.
Oh, and you don't know?
Yeah, I live under a cultural rock, so I came here to learn today.
It was a big game show on television. Back in the 70s, maybe.
I remember Jeopardy! Wheel of Fortune. That's about it.
Okay, so it is actually now on air again with Drew Barrymore as the host, but it's 9 contestants. It's like tic-tac-toe. So there's somebody in the center square, and then the 8 squares around that person, and then you have your. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. The panelists, the game show panelists are in the squares, and then the contestants are trying to get their tic-tac-toe.
So they need to guess who they are?
It's like a trivia. It's a combination of trivia and tic-tac-toe.
Right. And I think the way it came by me is that on social media, I think, did you guys have Mayor Turk in one of them?
He was a contestant last year, yeah.
Okay, cool. Who else did you get on?
Last year we had... I have it right here, my cheat sheet, because we're already planning this year, so I have to look back at. Okay, so we had Matt Turk from one of his staff at the time in the city of Allentown, Genesis Ortega. We had
Genesis, yeah.
Yeah, Lori Ghostly Hackett with our products. We had George Wacker. If you don't know George, you got to get to know George. Lehigh Valley with Love. He runs a really cool social.
I actually was going to reference a 2025 interview you had with them.
Yeah.
That'll be coming up soon.
Okay. Cassie Hilgert from Arts Quest was on. One of our show hosts, Lindsay Watson. So, just a variety of personalities in the Lehigh Valley participating. We pick a mix of people who have, good sense of humor, they're funny, they're witty, because we're asking the contestants have to guess if what the question they're answered, if they're lying or they're telling the truth. So it's like, it's really fun. It's a really good time. It's coming up again this year, October 27th.
Do we know who's going to be on the show?
I do not yet. I'm working on it right now. I have a few names confirmed, but I cannot release.
Oh, I was going to ask you for a sneak peek exclusive to the podcast.
I can tell you this. Our host of the show last year was Laura McHugh. She is with the United Way and has a public media background and a journalism background and is really wonderful. She's returning as the host. And so there's your preview.
Okay, there we go. I'm glad I got some exclusive information.
Yeah, it hasn't gone out on social yet. So.
Excellent. So because you brought up that Lehigh Valley with Love, which I admire the work that they're doing, I got to watch an interview you did with them in 2025.
On the roof.
So I'm not as, adventurous, so we're just doing it here in the office. I'm not going to be editing out all of the background noise from bustling, busy Bethlehem. He did a good job getting most of it out. But I want to actually turn to maybe a little bit more of a serious topic
Sure.
now that came up in that interview. I think our listeners know that public media has had a very challenging time over the past couple years now, depending where you want to draw the line on it. Many public media stations, unfortunately, have had to let some of their staff go simply because of a lack of funding and a loss of funding from the federal level. One of the allegations, and I brought this, actually, our first interview that we did on this podcast was with Mr. Harry Fisher. He's a former photojournalist for the Morning Call.
Yeah.
One of the allegations that the administration made against the media as an establishment in general is that it tends to skew more toward the political left than to the political right. And as a result of that allegation, they justified cutting funding for public media. So I guess the first question is, what is going to be lost by the fact that we have these cuts now? At the time, you said, I think if I have the quote right, you said, I have faith that they're going to figure things out. You're a good, faithful person, I can tell, but it looks like things didn't work out so well, unfortunately. So what is being lost now because of the federal funding cuts? And then I want to actually get your opinion on, those allegations that are made against the media writ large.
Yeah. So first, I think my interview with George on the Roof was after rescission. So we had already lost the federal funding. But what I was referring to is I have faith that it will work out, is that I have faith in the network and the system itself of public media. That's what
not in the U.S. government.
Correct.
That's an important clarification.
Correct. I don't have that faith that is going to be restored. Speaking strictly about public media.
I think most Americans don't have faith in the government in general.
Yeah, well, I'll stick to my area of expertise.
There you go.
But yeah, I don't think that even if an administration change comes at midterms or in the future, it takes decades to get appropriations built back in.
So this isn't as simple as just flipping a switch back on and letting the cash.
No, I don't think that they took into consideration when they made these votes how damaging this would be. For us, it was 15% of our revenue.
Wow.
That's not as detrimental as stations that are very rural that are relying almost solely on the federal funding to have any operation at all. So there'll be stations that shut down. The damage there is it's the emergency alert system. So you have a tornado in the middle of nowhere, California, and the only way you're getting information is through terrestrial radio. So, it's ignoring the fact that this country is not equally it doesn't have equal infrastructure, whereas not everybody has the access to Wi-Fi that we have here and the fiber and data that we have in the Lehigh Valley. So of course, people here aren't relying on 88.1 to tell them that the smoke they're getting infiltrating their backyard over the summer is from Canada wildfires, right? They're getting that information from somewhere else first. But there's many other stations across the country where that's their sole source of information. Puerto Rico, for example, when they had the hurricanes there,
right,
people had no way of communicating with each other except for through radio. So that's what's lost. I think the other thing that's lost is the sharing of community information. So we provide an outlet, a public square, so to speak, for this region where you talk about like the nonprofits, the arts and cultural institutions that can't afford to pay for big commercial advertising. We give them very reasonable pricing to do underwriting here at the station, and also we do about $300,000 worth of in-kind trade to help lift up the arts and cultural events that are happening here, to help enhance the quality of life here by letting people know that we have all of these wonderful, plays and theaters and music venues. So when you try to silence public radio, you're hurting your community directly. And
right.
and a portion of that, only a portion of what we have is NPR content, which is what was being disputed in the government, was that they were biased.
So they're throwing out the baby with the bathwater.
Correct. They're punishing all of these community radio stations that produce their own content primarily by looking solely at NPR and saying, we don't like how they report, we don't like what they report, and so we're going to punish everybody.
Right. There's the NPR national level, there's the local level, and there seems to be a collective punishment that's taking place. I'm just curious, to the extent you're comfortable going there, I would imagine you probably disagree with the characterization of there being a biased media, but I'm just curious how you would respond to what the administration is alleging.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard from other NPR member stations that they do feel that some of the reporting is biased or has become more left-leaning over the years. I've been an NPR listener for so long. I feel like maybe I'm a little too close to it, but I am listening to this station and NPR not all the time. I don't sit here all day and just listen to the radio, but I've definitely heard stories that I've felt like are one-sided on the right-leaning.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
can you think of any?
Yeah, I can. There was it was early in the quarter after Trump came into office again, and the story was only talking to his supporters. What do you think of him doing, what he's doing so far? And it was all positive about Trump. There was not even any counterbalance story. There was no story that ran after it that was about all the people who opposed him. It was so, I listened to that and I was like, wait a minute, are we talking to the other people? So I think it's kind of an unfair rap, I guess.
And this is the interesting question going on in the media in general now with Bezos at the Washington Post, with, I believe, CBS now as well, which is, are these national, some of them international media outlets trying to position themselves to get favorable treatment from the government?
Right.
And sometimes that means favorable coverage. So that seems to be a concern that's out there as well.
Yeah.
But I appreciate amidst all this crazy national politics, you guys are focusing on the local level. And I feel like that gets lost sometimes. I mean, I'll speak for myself for a moment. I still obviously follow national and to a certain degree international news, but I used to be a Wall Street Journal subscriber. I mean, it happens to be the subscription just got too high for me, but I actually swapped to the Morning Call, and I'm really happy I actually find the local news a lot more interesting. And then I listen more to the local radio stations now. I'll listen to the Up first, and I'll get the general gist of what's going on internationally. But I guess maybe part of the fun of it is, we're a big place, Lehigh Valley, but we're also at the same time a small place.
Yeah.
And, I start seeing the same people popping up. I'm like, hey, that's my buddy over there. Yeah, it's like a nice way to keep tabs on everybody.
It's community. It's all about community. And you're right. There is important stories being told here. And it's the same as if you want to pay attention. Everybody votes in the presidential, not everybody, but the largest majority of voters vote during the presidential election.
Right.
But the impact on your daily life is actually at the local level first, right? So the day-to-day things like the price and the tax that you pay, your local state tax, the cost of your, what's the word? Your trash. I was trying to think.
Garbage collection?
Your garbage collection. That's all governed locally.
On the municipal level.
Correct. So people should really be paying attention to what's happening on the local level.
That's honestly, I never had a clue that there was something called a city council and that what they did. And I still don't fully understand all the minutiae of it. I'm not going to pretend.
Yeah.
But a few weeks ago, the Allentown City Council, I'm a resident of Allentown, and Lehigh County's Board of Commissioners had a joint session together. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. So I decided, me and only a few other people from the public came to this thing. But I just thought it was the coolest thing. So then Executive Siegel was kind enough in his Substack, quoted me in there saying that it was the most ambitious crossover in history since Avengers Infinity War.
Oh, no.
So I was very happy. He quoted my name and the synagogue synagogue, and I said that's going to be my synagogue's claim to fame, apparently, in the neighborhood. So,
Nice.
But yeah, you mentioned that things are governed. The federal level obviously impacts a lot of things in broad swaths, and obviously they have certain levers of funding, which is super important. But the day-to-day for you and me living here in the Lehigh Valley is dictated a lot by the more local, the county level, the state level to a certain degree, and the municipal level.
Yep.
And, I'm curious, and I'm not asking a statistical question on this, but just anecdotally, we have the midterms coming up soon.
Yep.
Primaries are right around the corner.
Yeah.
So we're recording this in March for listeners who are tuning in just now. So what do you get a sense is on the ballot? What do you think is going to be the chief things that are motivating the folks that you're talking to?
I think it's going to be the economy, and I think closely stemmed with that are the SNAP program changes that are going to start really affecting individuals. It have already started to affect individuals' ability to feed their families. So, price is going up due to now the gas prices. I don't know. I can't even look at the number anymore, but because of the war.
It feels like the stock market, it's like, oh, the price is like low. Oh, it's high enough. I'm going to get it now, or it's going to go higher tomorrow. Oh, it's going to be lower tomorrow. And I never know when to fill up gas in my car. And at some point, you got to actually fill up the tank.
Well, I'm actually I'm one of those people that hates getting gas. I hate the disruption in my day to stop and put gas in my tank, so I'll go to wherever's closest to me.
My wife makes me do the fill up the gas in the car sometimes because of that. Like we swap cars and then I fill up her car and then bring it back.
Empty tank. I love it. Keep doing that. But I'm starting to shop around for my gas at this point.
Really?
Yeah. Like there's certain parts of town where the income level is lower and the gas prices are lower. Huh. So, I'm driving a little further to get cheaper gas. But,
But then you burn more gas on the way.
Yeah.
Then you have to pull a calculation.
It's on my way somewhere. It's on my way to my destination.
So you're smart. You figured this out.
I did. Anyway, but I think that's the economy is what's going to be on the ballot. And the cuts to Medicaid, the cuts to SNAP, the things that are going to really start impacting families directly, I think that's what folks are going to be focused on.
Yeah. I recently interviewed Victor Martinez from the La Mega station, also a local station, but services a very broad area beyond Allentown and a little bit beyond the Lehigh Valley as well. And he also, when I asked him, we were talking about the Hispanic community, and I had asked him, what do you think is on the ballot? And he quoted the everyone's favorite adage, it's the economy, stupid.
Yep.
So some things have not changed.
Right.
But while we're giving shout outs, I don't think I've asked this on the podcast in a few episodes, so I'm going to ask you this one. I call it Lehigh's Lost Legends.
Ooh.
And since you're I just like an alliteration.
I love it.
Since you are very community focused, are there organizations or people in the community that you would consider to be unsung heroes? People who could, maybe they're not all over social media, but they're doing really important work that our listeners should know about.
I have to go back to our volunteers, and I'll lump them in with volunteers of all the nonprofits in this community, because I think we have a lot of nonprofits serving this community, but we also have a lot of wonderful volunteers. And this station couldn't run without our volunteers in the current, way that we are formatted. And it's amazing to me, the people who want to give back and do something to a greater good than just their own, individual lives. So I think the volunteers are the unsung heroes.
And you know what? I think that's an excellent note to end on. Ms. Margaret McConnell, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you joining me as I walk through the valley.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me as I walk through the valley. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate and subscribe to our show. If you have questions or would like to book a live recording or have a speaking request, please email rabbi@sonsofisrael.net. This is Moshe Kurtz. I look forward to having you join me next time as I walk through the valley.